What's going on, everyone? When it comes to building muscle, it probably comes as no surprise that lifting weights is the most effective means of doing that. That being said, if you were to spend your time in the gym imprudently or inefficiently, then you likely wouldn't build nearly as much muscle as if you were to do otherwise. It's not necessarily about how much time you spend lifting weights, but how you spend your time lifting weights that has the biggest impact on the amount of muscle that you'll build. I think of it like practicing a musical instrument. Spending 60 minutes practicing the piano, for example, in a way where you're just kind of fiddling around without much organization or structure around the practice session likely would lead to significantly less improvement or less progress compared to if you were to spend those 60 minutes practicing with efficiency, good intent, and an organized way of structuring that practice session. In this video, I'm going to walk you through my latest full body gym workout. And as I go through it, I'm going to do my best to share and articulate how I approach performing each exercise in a way that's efficient to generate as much muscle growth or muscle retention stimulus as possible at this deep point in my natural bodybuilding competition prep. My hope in walking you through the workout and sharing my approach with you is that in doing so, it might give you some ideas to help you along your own muscle growth journey. Before we get started, if you find this video to be helpful or if you find yourself enjoying it, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. It really helps me out. Okay, let's get into it. Romanian deadlifts are up first. For each of my full body workouts, I'll start with my most demanding technical compound movement, leaving Romanian deadlifts up first for today. The exercise is meant to be performed as a pure hip hinge, meaning the movement should stem entirely from the hip joint. This is unlike a conventional deadlift or a sumo deadlift, where you would also move from the knees. Because the movement is pure hip hinge, it targets primarily the hamstrings and glutes. The primary function of those muscles is hip extension, which is what a hip hinge essentially is. That said, the movement is also very demanding on much of the upper body musculature as well, especially the spinal erectors and traps, which both work very hard to stabilize the barbell and keep your spine from folding over. So, in addition to hitting the hamstrings and glutes hard, the muscles of the back get a great stimulus as well. When I do these, I intentionally keep my eyes and chin up as I lower the weight down. Although you might hear differing opinions on if you should do this or not, I found it's a cue that helps me to keep my spine from rounding over and to keep tension where I want it, mainly on my hamstrings and glutes. As I lower the weight down, I try to keep the barbell very close to my legs. If I didn't do that and the barbell were to float outward further away from my body, it would put significantly more stress on my back and much less on my hamstrings and glutes. So, keeping the barbell nice and close is a must. My tempo is controlled as I lower the load down. It's not super slow, but slow enough to where it visually looks and feels like I am in full control. And I move as far down as possible to the point where I can feel a big stretch across my hamstrings, but with the intention of not going too low past the point where my lower back starts to round. It becomes more and more difficult to keep my spine from rounding as I get fatigued deeper into the set. Fighting to keep my structural integrity becomes a pivotal battle. You'll actually notice that I start to falter for the last several reps of each set when it comes to that. It's definitely not perfect. But even so, my setup is still sturdy enough that I'm able to squeeze out more tension at the end of the set without putting myself at much risk of injury. Flat dumbbell bench press is up next. As of late, I've been doing only dumbbell chest presses to hit my pecs within my program. No barbell bench presses, and since switching gyms recently, no machines either. Why only dumbbell presses? Well, simply put, because they leave me with a better mind-muscle connection than when using a barbell, and they tend to wear down my elbows, wrists, and shoulders significantly less to boot. I do like incorporating a good chest press machine and was actually doing so in my last gym, but since switching to this one, there aren't any pieces of equipment that seem worth me including over the dumbbell presses. If anything, I might start including some high rep deficit push-ups within the next week or so. Deficit push-ups are an exercise that definitely hit my pecs hard, but I'll make that call a bit later down the road. As far as my approach goes with these, I try to lower the dumbbells as far down as possible at the bottom of each rep to where I can feel a big stretch across my chest. The stretch sensation is an indicator that my muscle fibers are literally in their most stretched position, which is helpful for two reasons. One, when your muscles are working under load in that position, it probably leads to a ton of stimulus. And two, that strong sensation massively helps to reinforce my mind-muscle connection, acting as a kind of metric that I am, in fact, hitting my chest hard. I'll typically pause in that bottom position for a split second or two as well to really settle into that stretch. Leg extensions are next to hit my quads. The exercise itself is very straightforward, but the setup and positioning can be noticeably different if you ever find yourself between using different machines. This machine, for example, feels noticeably different than the one I use in the gym I just moved from, mainly in that it allows for a slightly shorter range of motion. Ideally, the more deeply you can flex the knee under load at the bottom of each rep, the better, to stretch out the quads under load as much as possible. But with this machine, that's where there's a bit of potential range of motion that's lacking at the bottom part of each rep. That being so, I set the machine into the position where I can get as much range of motion as possible, and then from there I simply aim to do as many reps as I can. Honestly, the lack of potential range of motion, it isn't the end of the world, and it's kind of a fun challenge to make the most out of the machine's limitations. And how am I making the most out of it? Well, I'm simply moving with control, both on the way up and on the way down, trying to keep tension on my quads at all times, which is tough, and doing as many reps as I can to the point of pretty much just not being able to move anymore. And that's it. T-bar rows are up next. These, along with dumbbell bent over rows, are my two favorite exercises for predominantly hitting my traps. I have a great mind-muscle connection with these. And unlike with the dumbbell bent over rows, where the spinal erectors are hit hard along with the traps, it's entirely the traps that are the limiting factor on these for me. To do these in a means that's as efficient as possible for muscle growth, I like to keep them under lots of control, where I can feel tension settled on my traps throughout as much of the set as possible, especially at the bottom stretched position of each rep. As with most rowing movements, these are commonly performed with some swinging, but again, for me, the stricter the better. I think about moving like how the hydraulics function on a piece of heavy-duty construction machinery, like on the arm of an excavator. Here are some specific technique cues I implement. I move the weight down low and pause for a split second, to where my upper back rounds a bit and my scapula is pulled apart to really stretch out my traps. I pull the weight up a bit more explosively, but still with control and without using any momentum or swinging. I'll typically do as many full range of motion reps as possible and then proceed to continue doing partial reps until I can't move with a full range of motion anymore. And once I can't even squeeze out any more partials, I'll move straight into doing as many Kelso shrugs as possible. Kelso shrugs are basically backwards shrugs, where instead of shrugging the weight up like you do with a typical standard shoulder shrug, you squeeze your shoulders back. I found this is a great way to get as much stimulus for the traps as possible. The military press is up next. This is predominantly a front delt exercise that hits the side delts a bit as well. As far as technique goes, I prioritize keeping my midsection well braced and squeeze my glutes. This is a means of reinforcing the foundation of my body to allow my delts to produce as much force as they're capable of. Without having a strong bodily foundation to settle on, my delts would lack the support needed to stabilize the load and would thereby not be able to perform as well. And if that were the case, it would mean not as much muscle growth. As far as my range of motion goes, I lower the barbell to where it literally contacts my clavicle area at the bottom of each rep, and I fully lock my arms out to where the barbell is directly over my head at the top of each rep. This is a strict press, so I make a point of avoiding jumping the weight up, not even a little bit. Incline dumbbell bicep curls are next to hit my biceps. I love these. The lying incline bench setup sets the arms in a position to where they stretch behind the back. That position actually leaves the biceps in a more stretched position at the bottom of each rep, compared to a standard seated or standing curl where your arms wouldn't go past the point of being next to or parallel with your body. The stretch position, in combination with the biceps experiencing their highest point of tension in a more stretched position, leaves me personally feeling like these are more effective than standard vertically positioned bicep curls. As far as my tempo goes, I move with tons of control in these and prefer to do them with mid to high rep ranges using lighter weights rather than lower rep ranges with heavier weights. I find that my mind-muscle connection with my biceps is best with that approach, and that I run into wrist and elbow issues significantly less compared to if I was lifting heavier. And last but not least in the session are these French presses to hit my triceps. Just like the bicep curls before this, I prefer to move with mid to higher rep ranges using lighter loads rather than lower rep ranges using heavier weights. Again, it leaves me with a better mind-muscle connection and is much easier on my joints. The real trick with these, to get the most out of them without making my elbows angry, in addition to using lighter loads, is to really nail down the turnaround speed of each rep, where I transition from lowering the weights down to raising them up. Specifically, I make a point of pausing at the bottom of each rep, doing my best to maintain tension on my triceps without deloading any of the weight onto my body, and then as I move up, and this is the important part, I move faster but still smoothly. I don't think about exploding the weight up. Rather, that I move the way the hydraulics on a construction excavator would move, the same as I mentioned earlier. And that's the session. How you spend your time lifting weights is arguably more important than how much time you spend doing the lifting when it comes to building as much muscle as possible. Hopefully, in walking you through my workout and sharing how I approach performing each exercise in a way that is efficient to generate as much muscle growth and muscle retention as possible at this point in my natural bodybuilding competition prep, it's helpful for you and gives you some ideas to try out for your own workouts to help you build as much muscle as possible. At this point, I'd love to know your feedback. Let me know any of your insights, comments, or questions in the comment section below. Before this video comes to a close, I wanted to quickly let you know about the work that I do. When I'm not making YouTube videos, recording podcast episodes, or making Instagram content, I work full-time as an online physique coach, where I help my clients to accomplish their muscle growth and fat loss goals by optimizing their approach to strength training and nutrition, and I coach them through the process. I've been doing this work for over 7 years and love helping my clients to not only transform their bodies, but ultimately their lives. If you've been considering getting some help with accomplishing your own physique goals, feel free to hit the link in the description below, where you can learn a little bit more about the work that I do and how I can help you. You can even use that link to schedule a free video consultation with me. If you have any questions about my coaching or how I can help you, just email me at sam@jadeathletics.ca. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.